So here today we have Adam from GetAccept for our next episode for Meaningful Conversation. Welcome, Adam.
Hey,
so
nice to be here. I'm great. Yeah, happy to be back at the office for Monday. We have a new onboarding starting today with 90 new people, so it's exciting. It's happening a lot.
90 new?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Is any of them from the marketing department?
Yeah, we have 2 new in our marketing department. So we're growing like crazy.
Once we're talking about that, like, I know you started recently at GetAccept before you was at Lime, right? The CRM platform.
Yeah.
Tell me about your team. How do you build it? These kind of things.
Yeah, it's a pretty funny story actually at GetAccept. One of the reasons why I joined here is really because marketing have such a unique position, and it's really valued here. I think 2 years ago there were 3 people in the marketing team. Today, with these 2 new, we are 27 people.
Wow.
So it's a pretty crazy journey.
How big is the company in total?
164.
And how big is the sales team?
I would say around double as the marketing team is.
Yeah, because that's something I heard, like, having a ratio that's like, almost 1.5 or 2 towards 1 is a quite solid foundation.
Yeah, and when I'm coming from like a situation where the sales team is more or less 5x or 10x what the marketing department is, it's a great change. So we are 27 people now, and the team that I'm leading, the demand gen team, I'm head of demand gen. We are 5-6 people, which is my entire marketing organization at some companies, right? So it's really great.
I just want to talk more about this marketing structure and like the team, because I really see this transition going from like, having more and more marketers and, equal to sales, because I think the landscape have been changing a lot quite last 1.5 years roughly. So, and why I think this will be super interesting, because you're working with demand gen, I would say, I think it's a lot confusing for many people. And I think there's been a lot of shifts lately. We have the lead gen part, demand gen part. We'll come into that back later, because I think that's an open discussion that I see on LinkedIn and everyone talk about it. But I will argue a lot of people have their ideas, but when you start asking questions about it, they are like, most following the mainstream, right?
Yeah.
So I would love to hear, like, how does your demand gen team look and what are they doing?
Yeah, I would say, demand gen for me is really about creating as much value as possible to our potential customers. That's really the basis of it, and to really have that as a north star of our team, to be honest. So in our team, we have our paid, everything paid search, paid social, and all of those goodies. We also have different types of field events, all of that. We have SEO, we have organic, and also brand. So there's a lot of things included.
How do you work with brand and demand gen team? Like how does the workflow look like, and like how do you guys set the agenda and like the goals for the quarter, like because the branding is very like it's very from company to company in my opinion, because you can do different activities. You can be sometimes more peer focused and some more like more social focused. So I would love to hear like how you believe in it and what's your take?
I would say that GetAccept in the past are coming from being really event driven, and that's where GetAccept made a lot of buzz in the early days. And I think we are kind of trying to get back to basics a little bit there. To sponsor an event is extremely costly these days, right? So that's not always an option, to be honest. But what we are trying to do a lot now that we see a lot of traction from our communities, finding communities that are specific to local markets, and engaging a lot in there, not really pushing our product, but just being visible there as a brand and as people with knowledge. I think that has worked really great for us. There are, in Sweden, we have the SaaS Nordics, for example, that I know a lot here are part of. In the UK, we have other communities like Sales Confidence that are very big and we are part of. In the US, we have Pavilion, Rev Genius. There are a lot of these popping up, and I think it's such a great place to be for us.
Yeah, because that's actually quite interesting thing, because like, you know, under Corona, people were like, you know, moving away budget from conference as event, but instead I think one of them turn remote or online instead.
Yeah.
So I still see equal much event or even more event because it's easy to host, but people still spending money on it.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say that we are probably spending, you know, say 50-50 versus brand and versus paid. You know, I would say that at least 50% of what we do are brand awareness types of activities, because that's really where we see, you know, the long-term growth happening. We need to establish us as a brand before we can actually start.
That's a really interesting topic, but like, you know, brand, you know, PR, the whole, like, you know, getting the company name out there is often a long term. It's a marathon, right? The question will be here essentially, like, you know, how do you measure these kind of things, or are you measuring, or do you have like a holistic approach, or what's your take on it?
Yeah, we are, and I would say my take on measuring brand is a bit. I think it's easy to become too data driven in a sense in trying to measure everything with all of these different attribution softwares and all of those things. I think it rarely works out well. We are, you know, measuring brand in some sense, you know, looking at, you know, how many branded searches do we have, how is our LinkedIn presence growing, and so on. But we're more looking into, okay, how are our overall, you know, revenue targets actually growing, and then it doesn't really matter where it comes from, to be honest.
On top of that, because I had a great interview with the founder of Lemlist for some week ago, and we also talked about that. One part of was essentially like, if you want to look at stock metrics, you can tie number, you can basically tie it to whatever you want it to be, right?
Exactly.
And I think I see that problem, but you're chasing too many metrics. So instead you like losing the gut feeling and, like, you know, the creative part of it, and, you know, and you're losing the bets, right? Because if you want to own metrics, Steven, then you can look at the metrics and do best like that, but many of them have lagging indicators and takes some long time to go. And so even if you get the numbers too early, you're probably like making wrong decision, or maybe like not the best decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a great example of that. It's like we have a great collaboration with our demand team here at GetAccept together with the SDR team that actually handles all our inbound. So we're getting so much great feedback. And then when we're looking into this, okay, these were some really great MQLs coming in, right? They are fit our ICP, they're ready to buy. Okay, where did they come from? Oh, yeah, direct traffic. Great. We can't do shit with this. And then, so now we implemented, you know, in our forms by just asking the prospect, okay, how did you find, in your head, how did you find us? Where is the like first? And we can already see so many, you know, interesting trends by asking that question, to be honest.
And this is so much fun because, like, literally I did the same change weeks ago. I also have like the SDR team in marketing, because I think that's one of the best information you can get on a weekly basis. And we usually like, you know, every week we're going through the past week and, you know, taking the highlights, and the highlights to one, we're asking them in the forms, but also this is something what I see, even if you ask things in the form, you can also get the best answer when we are having a real conversation with them, right? If you only ask, like, this is at least what I see, if you only ask like, how did you hear about us, or what that would be, it's most likely to say internet, a friend, and, you know, that's the information to start with, but you can have like a little bit more than that.
I agree.
How do you work with the sales and SDR team?
We I would say we work very, as you said, we work with feedback on a weekly basis. So they usually, you know, they actually type down where they, and give us each week on good leads, bad leads, and then we sit down together with them each week, to be honest, to go through it. But sometimes it's hard if we get feedback that something is very bad, and it's from direct traffic. It's very hard to like do anything concrete about it, right? It's more or less, but yeah.
No, I follow like that. That's like I see a little bit of problem with it. You know, you have direct traffic, your brand search, You can have direct from Google or Facebook, whatever. But even if you see that, it's usually not that's the only touch point anyway. So
no, exactly. That might have
been hard.
they might have found us like a year ago from an event or whatever. It's
cool. I think something that's I see talks about a lot right now, or like past months, I will say, is the whole lead gen, demand gen thing. I think to start with, I think a lot of people confusing those two. I think they're the same.
Yeah.
Adam, what's your take? What is it?
Yeah, my take is it's really a change of perspectives where demand gen is more revenue focused, obviously. Okay, we want to do revenue based activities that bring in ARR. That's really the basis of what we want to do. And through that, of course, we need to provide value and so on. And lead gen is more top funnel, getting leads through the door. And lead gen is not, I think lead gen is getting this super bad reputation now since demand gen is growing. And but lead gen is really just a part of demand gen, to be honest. It's like getting people through the door, which is still important, right? I just think that lead gens, we have some way, been leaning on gating content and those kind of things to get leads in, and that might not be the thing to do in 2021.
Yeah, it probably is like how I view it is a little bit like I see the lead gen downfalls is very correlated to the MQLs and ebooks. I think there are a lot of correlations between all those things. My perspective of it, like we're trying to drive things and mostly focus on, getting it onto pricing or into demo, because that's when you want to discover what you have, right? You can be successful with the ebook thing. So I don't think it's like, we take the bet that we don't gate things at least. Most of the things we don't do at all, because like the nurturing process is quite complicated. And we've seen rarely have given us good results. You have often taken more time versus output.
And I think another interesting point on that I listened to, I don't remember, it was another podcast maybe with Susanne, who is international marketing manager at HubSpot, and she talked about they only reached out to the buyers who themselves raised their hand. And that's a good point, and that's something we also want to strive against. But they have thousands of leads coming in every month. I think it's very different for a company that are scaling up in the beginning of their journey. It's hard to only focus on the ones who raise their hand, right? I think that's ultimately what we want, but we need to do other things as well, I think, to grow.
Yeah, that makes full sense. But and we're talking about, because I usually talk about the revenue team, success marketing. How does the correlation in your company and the way you are running the marketing team with the sales and success, and how do you combine the metrics together, and how do you guys talk on a weekly basis? How do you make sure you're reaching the quarterly goals or yearly goals or the goals you guys have?
I would say that we sit down for sure on a weekly basis together with many of our different sales teams to make sure we are trending in the right direction in terms of mostly ARR that we are looking at. But we also look at both MQLs and meetings booked, right? Because those are still targets important to hit to reach that end ARR. So we are more or less looking at that weekly, and also looking at a lot now, okay, are we getting in the companies in the right ICP, and what are their intent when they get in? Because that's really important for our sales team to know. And we are, always trying to increase that.
Well, how are you guys, making sure the ICPs is the correct according to you guys making sure you're driving the right demand for the right ICP? How does that work together?
Yeah, exactly. And that's super hard, right? That's the basic of us creating this feedback loop, because we don't know. That's as a marketing team, it's like we have so little customer interaction, so it's easy to get caught up in just the numbers. So we usually spend some time, at least bi-weekly, to listen in on sales calls to also understand what a specific ICP, what is a good potential customer there, because it's so different in our different verticals, for example. And it's so easy for us to really be behind a screen just thinking about it, but we kind of need to listen a bit more, I think. And that's what we are trying to achieve now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing. Like, you know, we try to revisit like every quarter and these kind of things, but also, you know, I think the whole ICP things for me is very correlated to talking with the SDRs on a weekly basis to actually get the feedback, because like you have one part of it, in my opinion, which is like the ICP they want to achieve for and you learn from, but you also want to make sure that the understanding when they're coming and, you know, raise the hand from the website align with the idea we're pitching in the demand gen funnel to actually what you say on the website. So they come in with the right intent.
Yeah, exactly. And we usually, when we create, you know, specific landing pages for specific campaigns, we usually include SDRs at some point to make sure that we are talking about the same things, right? That we are not, and usually we have certain things in certain countries that brings people through the door, and then we have other things that the SDR uses to get them further down the funnel. So that's also, you know, and that's also things we can create content for, of course, to get them down the funnel ourselves. But yeah, so I think that's super important.
Have you seen like if you're looking for the demand gen, you see different from different countries? I mean, some countries in Europe are more similar, and then you have UK, you have US, and they sometimes are a bit different from the rest of Europe. Do you see like, do you use different tactics, or do you see different struggles between the different countries?
Yeah, I would say it's a huge difference between countries, right? We are,
give me some insight
at GetAccept. Yeah, but we started out from the US, and US it's like a, you know, a super aggressive market. We have thousands of competitors. It's probably the hardest one to gain traction in. But you know, in the Nordics, we became big in Sweden pretty fast, and growing in the Nordics because they are very similar. We can talk more. I think we developed our marketing in the Nordics to be this. We were a bit different we weren't as nice as all the other companies in the Nordics, but in the US we were still these nice Swedes, and the same in the UK. So I think that's where we have to change a bit. Now we need to dare to be a bit more aggressive in the UK. We need to be more aggressive in the US, also France, compared to how we talk in the Nordics, for example. I think that's something that we underestimated in the beginning, that we can simply, you know, talk and act the way we do, but sometimes we need to dare to be different on other markets.
In a specific countries, a specific case, they think this has been a lot harder than you thought from the beginning?
Yeah, I think in the UK, we entered the UK pretty recently this year, actually, and I don't think we realized how similar they are to the US more than to Europe, in a sense. That there, you know, there are a lot of competition, of course, as well, but also that they are very direct. You know, they want to know what's in it for me right away. Don't skip the fluff. And we need to really make sure that we are doing that. And I think that's a realization we did pretty quickly, but could probably have done before we entered even.
And I don't know if you have to answer this, like, how do you decide, like, you know, which country you're going after? Because you're obviously trying new countries from time to time as experiments. I mean, it's quite common strategy. And like, how do you decide, you know, these are the ones you want to run after?
No, for us, it has been, you know, we sell mostly to sales organizations with a lot of sales reps, often in the IT tech space. So looking at what countries now, when we are growing in Europe, looking at what countries have the biggest markets, really. Okay, where can we actually grow the most? Where can we get the most bang for the buck? And that led us to now initially UK and France, where we see we are starting to get traction, but we still see that we have so much potential still to grow for years to come. And I think that's also the main reason why we are trying to move away from the Nordics a bit, because it's it's so much bigger market in both the UK and France. It's like the entire Nordics in one of those countries. And I think that's important for many companies starting out in the Nordics to also, dare to step away from the Nordics. Also. I think it's easy to get stuck in the Nordics.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it's like, it's two ways, right? I agree on it, but you also have like this, if you want to do something, maybe not super big, but you could, a lot of companies don't touch the Nordic markets. So you could quite like be by yourself here. And a lot of American companies do not touch the Nordic markets.
No, exactly. That's the other problem. Companies coming from US and like HubSpot, I know they want to grow in the Nordic market, for example, and that will be hard for a company like that are used to growing in kind of more aggressive markets, maybe, and with Yeah,
that's definitely the case. So I think it's a good side for some, bad side for others. If you're looking back to what we talked about a little earlier about like metrics things, like how does the team report to you, and like what numbers are you reporting on? Give me a little bit of information there.
Yeah, I would say at a company level, we're very much driven by the ARR metrics, of course, but also meetings booked in our ICPs. And then in my team, we're also looking, of course, a lot on traffic to site, organic traffic, because we're trying to grow that, of course, as a long-term game. We're looking at the MQLs and looking at the MQLs in different segments and sizes, and making sure that we're getting them, getting the ones that we want, to be honest. And then looking at deals and ARR, and also the measurements in between. So how many of our MQLs actually qualifies to become a deal, and how many of our deals actually become a customer, and those are very important for us.
It makes sense. Like a question
I would say
SEO and driving traffic essentially. Since if you obviously, I guess you are doing active works to ranking for certain keywords and so on to drive more traffic. But first I want to have your take on it. But like, how do you see correlation between that and actually more good meetings booked?
I think we have been a lot of the content that we write now are not I would say that we pick a keyword and then write content. We are writing a lot of content now that are very long and are research based on what we think is important, and then usually when we have started writing something like that, we of course find keywords that we want to rank on. But I wouldn't say that the starting point is that. The starting point is more, this is what we want to say and the value we want to bring in this piece that is, of course, never gated. And then through that value, we really believe that they will take at least some step further on. It might not be now, it can be in a year. They might read our next blog post in a year or so. But it's not so much about, I wouldn't say at all, it's not at all about selling when we're growing our organic presence. It's more of growing us as a brand and as thought leaders, I guess, in our fields.
And I think then that's the reason I asked, because I think we have a more similar way of thinking. I do think like you're posting something by quality first, and if it gets shared, like a lot of people like it, then I see definitely it's a good post. I would definitely don't look so much about like how much traffic gaining and so on. I mean, if it's a good post and gets shared and these kind of things, obviously we get traffic from it, but I would look less on like if you're ranking for the keywords, but because it seems to like the trending for how you're buying things is less towards how you Google on what you search on Google, and more about like that people are sharing the same problem when talking about, they will listen to the same problem, and if someone have used it before, recommend you that way. It feels like the first person experience kind of things is definitely the way forward, at least for us.
I agree completely. And they talk also so much from the US now about the dark funnel, where people talk about your products and stuff where you can't affect it at all in communities and so on. And that's also places where people share these kind of blog posts if they are good. If they are knowledge that should be shared, that's also a way to get into that, I guess.
yes, definitely it's community-based, dark funnel, gated gardens, closed gardens, and all these things. Okay, last few things here. First, I want to ask you, what do you believe in next? What do you think happen next year in marketing?
I think next year demand gen will happen for real in Europe. I don't think many companies work with demand gen in Europe. I don't think we are fully there yet. I think we have just been, taking the first step towards, our revenue-driven marketing organization. So I think marketing teams will have much greater importance during the next year, and it's a great time to be in marketing, I think, especially in Europe.
Good for all fellow marketers right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, then we end with the last thing. Like, give me 2 or 3 things you want to, recommend or say to all the marketers out there. Tips and tricks, whatever flows your boat.
Yeah, I would say it has always been such a huge focus on being data driven, right? But I as you talked about before, I think that's so important. Be data driven in a smart way. Find or decide on 1 to 2 metrics that's most important, and that's it. Don't dwell on it too much. It's more about, we need to create the story, we need to create the brand, and that's really where the demand grows from. I really believe that, sometimes we need to be a bit less obsessed about being data driven. I think that's important in order to create the story and create the value. And my next thing I would say is to do not gate anything ever. I think it should be illegal in 2022. I see many arguments for them, but I think none of them are valid.
No, I agree with you. So
it's great.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Great tips, and I think it was a very interesting conversation. I know you write a lot about demand generation, and I know you think that we're missing that here, because I see that in many of your posts. So be happy to follow Adam from GetAccept. He's great what he's great what he's doing. Okay, thanks for the chat. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here.